So today is quite an interesting day. Um, when we do the test, everything works, and then when we start the live, for some reason we have a challenge. But I'm hoping that we get to the bottom of this. So please, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, type 111. But we're really pushing because I want to share what is on my mind. Yes! Hallelujah. Thank you, Debbie, for that feedback. She's like, yay! Whoa! I'm trying not to like shout or over rejoice so that I don't make too much noise in your ears, especially if you're using an earpiece or something. But I will start this all over again. Hello and welcome back to Common Sense for Relationships. Yes, and today we are talking about long distance relationships. And some of you may be wondering where my husband is. Today we are doing long distance relationships. So even though he's in the building, even though he's in the room here, he's not by my side for obvious reasons. But you will hear his voice because the plan is, and I hope the plan works, that from backstage he will still speak and comment and
from long distance.
Yes, and share his thoughts so that we have a balanced perspective. So let's see, Jimoski. Now I hope you hear me. Debbie, thank you for the feedback. Kingsley Young says it's up now. Jimoski says 111. Fantastic!
Yes, from long distance.
Yes. Okay, so let's jump into this. You know, many marriages and relationships have been impacted. More like no volume. Okay, wait first. Many marriages and relationships have been impacted by this whole issue of long distance relationships. And you wonder, how did this come about? The fact is that the world has become a global village. And because of that, things that weren't popular in the past are now the trend. For instance, you see people meet, they fall in love, you know, and normally it would just be, okay, get married, settle down, and everything is fine. But now, somewhere along the line, someone says, hey, I'm traveling, I'm going to study, or I'm going to work, I got this job over there, and it's really beautiful. Or someone applied for and actually got the opportunity to move to another country, become a citizen of another country, or you have a green card or something. And because of that, these lovebirds have to part ways. Sometimes it's for a short period, sometimes it's for an extended period, okay? And it's an issue. And it's marriages and relationships. That's people who are not yet married, that's singles, right? That are experiencing all of these things. Now, when it comes to marriage, right, it's not just the couple that are affected. If there are children in the picture, they are also impacted. So the issue is, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this reality? How do we make sure that we are not that we make the most of the relationships in spite of the fact that we have to be apart for some time or for a long time? You know, some people even meet online, and start a relationship without seeing face to face. I mean, the dynamics are quite interesting, and that's what we're talking about today. So please, just in case you're one of those who's experiencing this, or you know someone who is experiencing this, or you know that at some point in your life you probably would or could experience this, it's a good time to share the link, to let your friend know, your cousin know, your neighbors know, everybody. And like my husband would say, your enemies. Share the link with them as well so they can join us. Yes. So now let's get down to business. And we said we're going to take excerpts from Husband Material, my book. I have it right here. And at some point, I am going to read from this book so that you guys will see that it's a good book. Just in case you didn't know, at least you hear what it sounds like. And and we'll see how this goes. Thomas, I see you. Thank you so much for joining. Yes, you came on the first time and now you're back again. Thank you very much for that, Thomas. Okay, so I have two important questions and I'm just going to read them, okay? Because, yes, I'm going to read them. How can couples thrive despite the harsh realities such that their marriages don't crumble? That's question one. Question two, how can people get to know a prospect well enough from a distance to commit to such a serious relationship as marriage, right? And then how do we ensure that children do not suffer too much from the effects? Yes. Okay, so if you have been in a long distance relationship before, this is a good time for you to just share. Please just type it. I have. If you have been in a long distance relationship before, please feel free to type that in the comment section. And if you did any really interesting stuff during that period or during that experience, please feel free to also share so that we can learn from everyone, both myself here, my husband when he speaks, and from our lively and interesting audience. Thank you very much. Okay, so what are the real issues with this whole thing of long distance relationships? I'm sure some of you are wondering if I have been in one before. I have. And I actually have a chapter on that experience in my book, Husband Material. And for me, the reason for that long distance relationship was school. I had to go get my master's, and this happened, in fact, right after my husband had asked me to go out with him or marry him. I'm mixing it up now, one of the two. But you know what happened? The guy at a point said, hey, if I knew this was going to happen, maybe I wouldn't have asked. Maybe I wouldn't have asked you, because it was not like what's going to happen, And honestly, at a point, he said, should we still do this? Do we really have to? And so on and so forth. And sometimes my husband likes doing this really, I don't know if it's humility, I don't know what to call it, where he starts saying, we never know, you may go and find somebody more interesting, and then because of that.
It's not humility, it's the facts, man. The facts. I'm a very nice guy.
You're a very nice guy. Okay.
Very nice guy. So I just said, so that you won't feel like I'm tying you down.
Tie me down. Okay. How nice of you. Okay. So he didn't want to tie me down. So all right. I went and it was 1 year and 2 months, and it was a intense period. I think it was also very tiring, really tiring. Let me tell you why it was tiring for me. You know, when back then you didn't have your phone, like mobile phone, you just pick it up and call. So we had to go to a business center to make the call, and sometimes you had to go to the phone booth to make a call. And especially during winter, it was terrible going out in the cold to make a call. But I was determined to push through and make sure that there's no communication gap that develops to the point that it feels like, you know what, you don't even know what's happening in my life. I don't even know what's happening in your life. You know what? Let's just go our separate ways. So that's why I say it was tiring, but I persevered and I made it. Yes. So I'm going to share some of the things that I learned from that experience, and I am going to just talk about other things that I know people are doing, and practical steps people are taking to make their relationships work. So, like I say, right, in my book, Husband Material, everything in life is a risk. Even eating food, drinking water, it's a risk. So the issue now is, what are the risks that are involved in a long distance relationship? One key thing is the possibility of a heartbreak. And you wonder, in fact, I think this one is pretty obvious. By the time you are apart, it's very easy for somebody to find somebody else who may be a lot more interesting than you. Okay, and it's easy for them to say, you know what, I'm moving on. Or I mean, when there's so many other options, it's easy for people to just move on. So that risk exists. So what are you going to do? Are you going to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this because of the risk? No, you will consider all your options and see whether or not you need to even continue with the relationship. And in the event that you choose to continue, then you need to put certain measures in place to help the relationship succeed, to guard your heart, right? To make sure you are not vulnerable, right? And to make people know that, hey, I'm taken. That one is very important. You know the drill now. By the time you see somebody, you talk today, you talk tomorrow, you talk again, you talk tomorrow, you spend some more time together and a lot more time together, and then you start discovering all the nice and beautiful things about the person. Please, Jimoski is saying something. Why do I need to discover all the wonderful things about the person if I am not interested? Abi, I should just mind my business and live a quiet life and prevent the interaction from getting to the extent where I'm beginning to make the comparison. I mean, who needs that? So, I mean, those are just simple things that you can do. If you do not want to have a relationship with somebody else, yes, if you don't want to have a relationship with somebody else, then don't create the conducive environment for that relationship to start and grow. Jimoski says long distance relationship have destroyed my present relationship. Oh, so I lock up for.
You say I lock up for
the relationship thing for close to 2 years. Wow, interesting, Jimoski. And he's asking for a link to call. We'll see if we can make that happen, Jimoski. But Jimoski, I feel your pain because it can be a problem. Long distance relationships, they can work, but they require a lot of work. And the way some of them fail, you could almost say are catastrophic, which is why we need to really talk about these things. Okay, now, so don't create the environment, and I'm talking about the person now, because sometimes the problem is not the other person. The problem could be you. So if you have said to somebody, I'm going to be in this relationship with you, I'm committed to you, and you are away, please put boundaries in place. Don't create a conducive environment for a new relationship with somebody else to thrive. Okay, put up signposts to let everybody know you're not available. What kind of signposts? Example, a picture in your house or in your room, your screensaver on your phone, on your laptop, just stuff, right? In your conversations, take the opportunities to just mention that, oh, by the way, I am, oh, my boyfriend would have said, my husband would have said, oh, my wife likes this. Just find opportunities to chip them into your conversations and let people know that you are not available, so that it just reduces the stuff that you have to deal with. Jimoski is joining us to share. So let's welcome Jimoski to the studio and hear what he has to share with us. Hi, Jimoski.
Hello, good evening, guys.
Hello, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm fine. I'm not fine because Madrid did me something yesterday, so I'm not fine actually.
Sorry, it's true. We should empathize with the people, all the Liverpool fans and so on.
Thank
What should
you.
I say?
Thank you.
Accept my sympathy. Oh, sorry. No, oh, Ekpele, all of them.
I mean,
Okay.
Arsenal fans shouldn't say anything. They should just hold on. Oh.
Joroski, please leave us in out of this. You said you want to talk about long distance relationship.
But you know,
Please.
but you know that Liverpool is almost like Arsenal this season because all they have is Carling Cup and League Cup. That's what we used to win.
Okay, Joroski, I'm ready for you. Tell me.
Okay. Good evening, guys. Good evening.
Good
Um,
evening.
Actually, for me, for my earlier life or relation state, I started a long distance relationship.
Hmm.
Yeah, the first time I fell in love, the first time I have anything like a relationship or a long distance relationship. And the second one was also a long distance relationship. And
Wow.
the way it's affecting me now is that it make me I feel more happy, comfortable if I'm alone. But when I'm alone, I feel like I'm missing somebody. But when I have that person around me, that person just look boring to me because I'm already used to just being alone most times. So the relationship was like okay, with whenever we want to see, like the person travel down to Lagos, we see maybe for a few 2 days, and the person go back. And if I want to see her, I travel there, and so that was just like so. Let me just say, seeing her was like a short time to me. So it's not affecting me if I have a lady around me that want to spend more time with me. So instead of me giving her attention, I start finding somewhere that will give that attention to make me happy because I just feel bored. Sometimes I just be home from morning to night and maybe on my phone or with my television, I'm okay. And the person you are dating will not want you to see her around you. She's around you, then you are concentrating on your phone or you are watching TV and you don't have a time. So it
Okay.
affects me a lot most time. And in fact, that one of the big issue I normally have in my relationship issue. It causes argument, it causes like maybe I don't care or I don't love the person, but truly I love that person, I care for that person, but I just find myself being lonely. So that's the way, that's the mindset that long distance relationships really affect me. And even it's something that I'm even struggling myself to get myself on out of that issue. And I'm not the type that I like hanging out, but sometimes I just force myself to hang out. I just force myself to be among people just to see just to get myself from out of that room. So that's the way long distance relationship. So
Hmm.
because of that, instead of being hurting any lady feeling, I just say let me pause the relationship issue for now to see if I'm struggling, put myself on out of that situation before having another lady in there. So for me, I won't advise anybody to do long distance relationship because long distance relationship most times there's argument. The person is either suspecting you are cheating, or the person is suspecting you are not having time or you are paying attention on time, or even when you don't want to see the person that moment. So it's most times argument, either you break up today online or on phone. After some time, you'll come back together again, and just that's how you were going. But for me, I don't think it's healthy for me, and believe me, it affected me and badly. Thank you.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jimoski. Wow. Okay. Jimoski, thank you so much for calling in and sharing. Please, if anybody else on the show wants to call in, please just leave a note and a link will be sent to you to join. So, wow, Jimoski, that's a lot that you talked about, and you have surmised that long distance relationships are not for you. Thank you very much for sharing. Let's see. Thomas says, I have, and I and my partner stayed on video calls almost every minute. It was always fun, though the connection was quite intriguing. But data, data was the problem. Thanks so much, Thomas, for sharing. Jimoski raised a couple of points, really important ones that we are going to touch on as we progress. So one of the things he talked about was trust. Okay, and interestingly, I have a portion in my book that I wrote about trust. I'll just quickly read that to you. It says, in a long distance relationship, trust takes on an additional scope. It's not just about trusting them not to dishonor the commitment you made to each other. In a case where you are not yet married, you need to be able to trust them to do all that your commitment to each other requires, including being honest about the true state of their feelings. So you see, if you're not yet married, right, before you even start this whole long distance relationship thing, you need to discuss, should we bother? Is it worth it? Should we do this? I mean, do I love you enough to wait for you for 1 year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever, however long it will take? Should we bother, or should we just call it quits and say, okay, life is sending us a message that we are not meant to be together. It was nice knowing you. You're fantastic, but it's not going to work out. I'm not ready for it. Bye, bye. I mean, these are conversations that people need to have. But sometimes people will just say, oh, I'm moving. Okay, I'm moving. Okay. And then they go. And in fact, some people may even try to tie others down, according to my husband, by saying, before I leave, let's at least do cut. Let's at least do traditional. There we go. Almost as if let's do something to make sure that we stay together. What? Why? If you're not truly, as in your heart of hearts, you don't feel like it has to be this person, then I don't think you should do that, right? Because by the time you do that, you've made some commitments legally, and then you now go over and you meet other people and you start saying, hey, I shouldn't have, hey, if I had known, Allow the relationship to breathe, right? Allow for time to tell you whether this thing that you are doing or claiming is going to work, whether it will really stand the test of time. Okay, so that's another thing. Then long distance relationship, someone says, if you're a partner that always wants to be around your partner, it will be very difficult to stay faithful, especially the lady. Where are you putting especially the lady there?
There must be some experience.
Why are you putting that, Thomas? I'm not going to probe so that will not bring some things out.
You push Arsenal now. This is a long distance. We're talking. What's Arsenal and Liverpool doing here again? It's long distance. Arsenal is a long distance away from Liverpool.
Yeah. So trust takes, it's another leaf, right? Because you're trusting, you should have discussed and made certain commitments to each other. As we are going, we will do this and that and that. We will not do this and that and that, right? And the trust is about keeping to those commitments and also keeping each other abreast of how you feel, because you may have made commitments, but at a point you may find out that these feelings are fading, or the feelings are changing, or you know what, I don't feel like I want to go on with this. Don't allow the person to continue on the other side waiting for you, trusting and believing that you are waiting for them, and then at the end of the day they just receive invitation from you that you're getting married, and it's like that is such a betrayal of trust. So part of trust in long distance relationship is be true to each other about your feelings as they are changing. If it's still strong, be strong, yes. If it's fading, boys, fading. I'm telling you now. So if the guy needs to do something to beef it up, he does. If he feels like, you know what, I can't handle this, let it be. Bye-bye. But that trust is really important, okay? So there should be sufficient mutual trust, such that if things have changed and one party's interest in the other has diminished, they should speak up and discuss it and decide whether to try to save their relationship or call it quits. That's all I'm going to read from my book, okay? There's so much more juice in there, and if you haven't got it yet, I encourage you to get husband material, okay? So, husband material, you really need to get it. Now Mayowa is also going to join us in the studio to share a few thoughts. Maiwa, you are welcome. And this time around, I see you, and I hope I will hear you too.
Yes, ma, you
So,
definitely do.
yes, I hear you. Okay, great. So, Maiwa, tell me what's going on.
I'm good. I'm good. You're looking fantastic. I don't know if it's the green, but you're looking
If
good.
it is the what?
If it's the green,
Okay, the green, right? Maybe it's the green. Maiwa, very funny. Okay, please go ahead, Maiwa.
so I'm coming from the other angle. I'm hearing myself back.
Yeah,
Okay.
just go ahead.
Okay. Coming from the other angle from where the Muslim is coming. So I understand and I agree with some of the things he said, but for me, long distance relationship has been like the very best thing that can happen. Like it's just cool. Like you can imagine having all the fun of the relationship without having to deal with the stress of the actual person. Like there's this a lot of kinetic drama that would have happened if we are both in the same place at the same time. It's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
You get to enjoy the relationship, and if any yawa gas, like if any issue happens, it's just a
You
case of
just travel.
you just take a break or two, and everybody comes back, everybody's fine, everybody's perfect. And then if you're someone like me that takes steady BC as a really big deal, it really help a lot because there's no temptation or any temptation at all. So it works out, everything checks out. But the most right in the sense that when you have done long distance for a time, even this person that you claim to know, even this person that you enjoy talking to the person every single day for hours on end, and then you're now in the same room with the person, and it just feels extremely different, like totally different. So I have been on a long distance thing for years now, 8 years and counting, and I can tell you for sure it's been amazing. I wouldn't have it any other way. Long distance relationship works.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Maiwa, for sharing. Honestly, it's discussions like this that help you to see other people's perspectives, right? And you just get to appreciate that what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. One person says long distance relationship, I can't deal. Another person says, in fact, long distance relationships are a blessing to me. And this also varies with people's personality types, people's preferences in general. So yes, Maiwa, thank you so much for sharing. So remember, commitment, discuss it, talk about it. Know whether you're going to do this or not. Is it worth it or not? What is the extent of my commitment? Please talk about the details. And if you're married, talk about the details. Because one person can say, you know what, my wife understands, but they know be rude. So a man has got to do what a man has got to do. Meanwhile, the wife is on the other end with a completely different view on the matter. And by the time she hears that her husband did this or her husband did that, she becomes very disappointed and feels betrayed. Like, hey, you cheated on me. And the guy is saying, what did you expect me to do? Blah, 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 blah. The one who moved away and so on and so forth. So it has to be discussed. How long, if you're married, how long can you stay without intimacy with me? Right? And the person says, I think I can handle 3 weeks, so I think I can handle 1 month. Okay, what is the plan for us to make sure that we see each other at the end of every month or something? These are critical discussions that you need to have. And if somebody says, you know what, we can't afford to be flying up and down, so it means that we cannot do, I can't see you in a month. And the person says, I can't wait more than 1 month. See, you have to talk about the details. Okay, if you cannot fly and you cannot wait, should one person pack up and follow the other? Should one person put a pause on their career or business or whatever and follow the other person for the sake of the marriage, for the sake of that union, right? These are things that must be discussed. You can't shy away from it. I mean, crazy things are happening all over the place. You don't want to take chances and you don't want to assume. And then at the end of the day, you find out what you assuming is not what the other person was assuming. So please discuss and talk about the details, okay? Yes, Thomas says, because guys generally like a lot of space in relationships, so that long distance is enough space. Thank you. I think the most interesting part is the ability to run away when things are getting hot. But I feel that what you miss in that whole thing is you don't get to like experience this person completely, and you don't get to some extent have the full opportunity to walk through challenges until you resolve them, and then you continue, plus, minus, advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons. These are things we need to talk about when we're saying we are going into a relationship that is a long distance relationship. Okay, so now yes, so you have to decide, should we fight to be together, or should we just go our separate ways? Terms and conditions, discuss them and align. Now, we talked about trust and the fact that it is really seriously very, very crucial. Okay, you cannot go on without trust. I mean, there's certain people that you shouldn't even bother going into a long distance relationship with, right? Because of the level of trust that you have with that person. So for instance, you're living in the same town with the person or something, and even as they are in the same city with you, there's already wahala. You cannot trust you cannot trust them when you're in the same place. Is it when they are far away and you have no control, that you can't do any surprise showing up, and so on? You don't have friends in common. Is that the time that you will now say the relationship is going to work? So track record up to this point, right, also gives you a clue. Should I bother to go into a long distance relationship with this person? So now, if you choose to, you need to have a communication, you need to have a plan. Why do you need to have a plan? Because if you don't have a plan, things will just happen in a way that is, call it uncontrolled, right? And how things turn out is pretty much up to chance. But if you have a plan, then you're putting in some control into the process. So for instance, what's your communication plan? If you're in different time zones, when are you going to make that call or do the video call or something? If you're in the same time zone, talk about everything. Is it in the morning before we go to work, when we are not stressed, when everything is nice and dandy? Is that the time, or is it much later at the end of the day? We do a debrief and we can share what happened during the day and so on. You have to have a communication plan. You have to have a plan. For instance, if you're married, how are we going to stay connected and continue to contribute in the kids' lives, especially if all the kids are with one parent? The parent who is away, how are you going to stay connected? How are you going to continue to contribute in your children's lives? These are things you have to discuss. What are you going to do? Are you going to do homework remotely? Are you going to prep your daughter or son if they're going to maybe do a competition, maybe a quiz or a debate or something? You have to talk about this. You have to even talk about how you share bills, because you'll be running two homes. One person is over there, one person is here. One house there, one house here. All sorts of bills on both sides. What are the earnings? And how will you now divide the bills that you have? Okay? So, yes, so let's take some time to go through some of the comments that are coming in. I see Jimoski says risk of long distance relationship is infidelity. Yes, Jimoski, that's really valid, because and it's just what it is. I mean, it's easy for someone who has never done it before to say I'm abstaining, but for somebody who has tested the waters, hallelujah, and seen that it is glorious, I mean, they want to continue, you understand? So you get, that's really one serious one. Priska says, I think long distance relationship gives you room to understand and appreciate your partner. So I guess, Priska, is this, I'm assuming this is, the person is so far away that I have enough room to think, what did he do the last time? This must be why he did it. Priska, well, I think it's possible. It depends on how people process and analyze the matter. And Oluwapo Hannah says, I really love long distance relationships too. Okay, because I love my space. You see, this thing we're talking about, and it makes me focus and stay out of relationship wahala. So you just know, okay, this phone call I am about to have, I will say 1, 2, 3, and 4. I must not mention 5. Then I will move to 6, and so on and so forth. So you plan it and coordinate and organize it. Maybe you even write a script and you are reading from the book. Imagine that. Charisma Beauty, hi. She says, long distance relationship has never been my thing. I can't survive it. But it's good for a godly relationship based on temptation and all before marriage. Okay. So, that's really important. Okay. Why this is a crucial issue that Kai just brought up, because the thing is, when you are in a relationship and you're hoping to get married at some point down the road, you need to be finding out a lot about the person. You need to get to know so much about the person so that you know whether this person is the kind of person you can spend the rest of your life with. And it's usually a lot more effective to do that when you can see them. You know how they talk about communication is not just verbal. There's the body language, there's the facial expression, the tone of voice, the this, the that. I mean, when you are not face to face, you lose some of that. So you now have to go the extra mile to find out a lot about this person, talking to people who you feel know them, asking a lot of questions, really listening and really, really paying attention to what they say, keeping a log, of certain responses that are crucial that they have given you, right? I mean, there's so much. Just know that in spite of all you do, it's still not as fantastic as it would have been if you had that face to face to be able to get more and to be able to experience them in different environments. We keep talking about that. See how they treat people at the restaurant, see how they treat the person who is of call it lower class or whatever on the street, see how they respond to, all of those things. You may not get those opportunities. So it's a risk, but it's not impossible. There's some people who have met online and gotten married and they were happy, right? Or their marriage continued blissfully with typical challenges, but it wasn't something that they had to run out of, but the risk remains. So you just need to be aware of those risks when you are getting into a long distance relationship. And really, if you love this person and you want to go all the way, then decide that you are going to be committed, right? And it takes two. You can't be committed by yourself to somebody who is not committed to you. So please check to make sure that commitment is mutual as you are pushing and pushing for a better relationship. I can see my sister giving me that thumbs up. Woo! Yeah. Hi, Auntie Patty. Yes, so I'm happy. Yes, so my long distance relationship story ended well. And I mean, at a point, my friend was really concerned about me. She was thinking, what if you go back and Kingsley has married somebody else? Okay, what if you go back and Kingsley has moved on? Maybe he's in a relationship with somebody else. What will you do? In fact, I won't tell you too much. At a point, she even organized some kind of prayer for me. Because she was like, what will happen if this guy? Anyway, yeah, so I will give you just a little more treats from my book, Husband Bature. Yep. And I'm going to tell you about the workbook. Now, the workbook is really interesting, okay, because we talk about how you go through step by step to make sure you've covered the bases. This is the workbook. Okay, and in the workbook we have 10 frames. That's what I call them, frame 1 to 10. Frame 1 is know thyself. We're talking about different steps, the very basics. Know thyself, define the template. We go through step by step. What do you need to cover as you are on this journey to finding the love of your life? You get down to the point where you get to know your prospects, to the point where you ask yourself certain questions, serious questions, before you decide, and in each frame you have the opportunity to read some crucial points to help you, and a couple of questions to answer to help you, and it just takes you through. I mean, it's I don't know if you can see it well, but it's really worth taking the time to read. So I encourage you, get the workbook if you haven't gotten it, and get the book too. Okay, and if you've gotten it already from Amazon or from any of those other platforms, please, when you're done reading, leave a review. That would be really good. It would go a long way. Yes. So KJ is coming into the studio to share some thoughts with us. I'm really enjoying this calling thing. I mean, first of all, we had Jimoski, then we had Maiwa, now we have KJ. The other time KJ came, the things that he said, KJ, okay,
Yes.
you are welcome. You're welcome, KJ.
So please, whatever I'm about to say, nobody should crucify me. If my wife is on here, please don't kill me.
Your wife. Okay, just go ahead. We're listening.
All right. So personally, I feel that long distance relationship is actually a good thing. Let me know that it sort of helps me appreciate the relationship the more, appreciate the person, the more appreciate the person's presence. You're not always seeing the person physically, There are some points anybody who wants to agree with that, There are some points it gets boring. So long distance relationship just brings that flair, that small, you miss the thing, you can't wait to see the person, like this, the hype in it. And when you now finally see the person, you're like, oh my God.
You get KJ, I hear you. You see the person, you're like, oh my God. Celebrate grace.
Maya, why you're blessed? Celebrate Maya. Maya, you know what I'm talking about? There is that joy. But on the flip side of it, it makes you feel like it makes men, because I think men love this thing the more, because it gives us that quote and unquote peace. But it makes us lazy as regards the relationship, because we are not there to receive firsthand the drama we get from the ladies.
But is this peace? This peace, is it just peace, or is it just room to play away game?
No, sir, it's not room to play away game. Maya, behave yourself.
No.
Okay, guys. I hear you. I've heard you.
I'm talking about for men that are disciplined. Men. I'm not talking about men that play away game.
You're not talking about.
Okay, you're talking about disciplined men, but you appreciate the fact that the person, your girlfriend or wife or whoever is far away, and you have the opportunity to miss them, and it feels like, oh, I'm really missing something, and then when they come, it's like, oh wow, fantastic. Exactly. I see. Okay, nice. Thank you very much for sharing. But there's something that I picked from what KJ said. He said that sometimes it's boring when you're with somebody, and I'm just like, what? Oh, boring how? See, that is why friendship is so important, because your friend is your friend. You will gist, you will talk, you will laugh, and you will be quiet sometimes together, and even the quietness is beautiful. You understand? So I see Timora has joined and Jimoski is back. Okay, this is interesting. Tell me what is happening. This one. What did you say?
Very important. If anything that will happen in a long distance relationship and you are not ready to talk about it at that instant in there, you can say your phone was off and you were sleeping and then deal with it physically. And they come and tap you around 1 a.m. We have to talk about this. You don't have any choice. You just have to stop.
But so on a serious note, most people that love long distance relationship, they are not saying the fact why they love long distance relationship. I'm a guy. I've been in a long distance relationship before, twice. And believe me, a long distance relationship gives you the room to mess around. Let's be honest with ourselves, guys. Let's be very honest.
That's the question I was asking,
Let's
Jaboski.
stop
Jimoski,
pretending.
don't break the step. Why you do like this now? Jimoski, leave this table.
No, serious. Let me break the table, guys. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop trying to paint it. It gives us the room to mess around. In fact, it gives us that freedom to do whatever we want to do. And we just believe that the person we are dating is waiting for us faithfully while we here messing up. So that's what I've been in the long distance relationship because see, let me tell you, long distance relationship spoil me. Let me use the word, it spoiled me totally, and I don't wish to enter in. It better than have a relationship let me have a relationship where the person will be using touch to be monitoring me. Where the person will be
Oh my goodness. So there's a certain liberty that you have in long distance relationships because you can do what you want to do. Example, office romance can thrive.
Office romance.
And can extend from the office to the house when somebody else is out. And
From office to Asaigi.
in fact, for the people who are planning to do it right and not play a away game, I don't think it's try to be.
He said there are few.
There are few. Well, me, I choose to hope that there are plenty. And if you are one of those people, so one of the things you can actually do is to try to be independent to a great extent. Just try to be able to cover all of those other things that you would have needed your husband or wife for, to a great extent. By for example, ladies, you have to now find out how to get your car fixed on your own and so on. And just different things. Guys, if our culture, learn to cook, right? Or at least have a place where you just order, they deliver and stuff. The moment you start telling somebody, oh, please, could you come to my house and cook for me? Or, oh, my car is due for servicing. Can you help me take it? And then the person will say, oh, I've taken it. I've come back. I'm so famished. And you're feeling like, oh, you need to come in and have a drink. I mean, one thing leads to another. You just need to put certain boundaries. Really, honestly, sit down. You know yourself now. You know the things that will happen that will make you feel like I really love this person. I feel indebted to them. And the Patricia says, hi, it's not easy, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Yes, you need God to make it work because a lot of things could be hidden. Yes. Thank you so much. And this is for the people who really mean to do it right. And Patricia, thank you. In addition to putting physical boundaries and barriers and stuff in place, right, to prevent yourself from being so vulnerable or from giving in to begin to do the things you committed not to do. Yes, get all the help you can get, including the help of the Almighty. Pray, ask for help, ask for grace, have accountability partners, and so on. Find things that will keep you engaged, right? How do you deal with those low, very delicate, sensitive, touching moments? How do you deal with it? Have a strategy. That some people will tell you their shower is their best friend during that time. Just pour some very cold water to help you come back to earth. Other people have different strategies, okay? But find what works for you that does not turn you to a criminal, that does not turn you to an unfaithful spouse, that does not make you someone who doesn't keep commitments, that you're no longer a man or woman of your words, okay? And so on. Find what works for you that is lawful and right. And remember, do unto others what you have them to do, what you would have them do to you. So if you are doing something and if my wife did this, my husband did this, I won't like it. Don't do it. Okay. So, those are just some simple laws. Timora says, however, if I am to give long distance relationship a try, it will depend on the quality of the relationship before the long distance issue came up. Exactly. And that's what we're talking about, Timora. From the beginning, test and check and see this relationship. Where is it going? How is it? What's this person? How are we together? Is it worth it? Should I try? Should I push for this relationship to work? Should I go through all the trouble? Because it will be trouble. To call somebody every day or every other day to tell them this what happened, this what happened, I went there, I went here, this didn't work out fine, I'm not excited about it. Oh, look, I had a terrible day, I had a beautiful day, I succeeded, I failed, all of that. To keep them involved in your life so much that it feels like you still have a bond is a lot of work. So if you're not yet married and you're considering a long distance relationship, know that you're in for work. And if you're not ready for it, then don't commit and then now scatter the whole thing. But if you are, go ahead with the commitment, work up a plan with the person, talk about the details of your commitment, know what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, know what will constitute a breach of your commitment or your trust and so on, and then go forward. Okay, so I am so grateful for the fact that people have really shared with us today. Thank you so much, Jumoski. Thank you, Maiwa. Thank you, KJ. Yes, because these things just help us to see more perspective. So we're really grateful for that. And if you have gotten value from this video, and I believe you have, please remember to share with your friends and loved ones. And if you like what we are doing, please go ahead and drop a feedback, leave a feedback for us, okay, so that we know and we see. And like we said last time, if there's anything you want us to address here, please feel free to share as well. I will remind you again, the links to husband material, they are on below. Check in the video description, you'll see the link, so you can click to purchase husband material on the various platforms that that it's available on. I look forward to your reading the book and sending me feedback. So remember, we have talked about the fact that many marriages and relationships are currently plagued by this whole long distance relationship thing, and that for you to go into one or for you to sustain one, there's a lot of trust required, commitment required, communication required to agree on the terms of your commitment. Yes, trust is a big issue in long distance relationships, and you need to even check, is it worth it? Before you go into a long distance relationship, you have to talk about the extent of your commitment. You need to discuss the details of your commitment in a long distance relationship, and you have to talk about, as far as things like how long can you stay without intimacy with your husband or your wife. I mean, it's important to get to those details and work a plan that keeps you people from being vulnerable, from yielding to temptation. What is the communication plan? Is another thing we talked about. You have to define it. How are you going to stay connected? How are you going to stay involved in your children's lives? How are you going to handle remote parenting? You need to put plans in place for those, and everyone needs to be aligned, because you won't say, this is the time that works for me in Nigeria. Meanwhile, you're expecting somebody to wake up by 2 a.m. to talk for you, to talk to you, from a different time zone. You need to be considerate. And long distance relationships may be a risk, but it's not impossible. And just to help everyone out there, what works for A may not necessarily work for B. So if it doesn't work for you, don't go condemning it, because for some other people, it's perfection. And you may find two people, a lady and a man, who absolutely like their space, and long distance relationship is the best thing after fried rice for them. So yes, more comments. Maiwa says, I have seen firsthand how destructive long distance can be in a relationship. It was, however, due to the carelessness of the man. Okay, so that's an example. The wife is someone who enjoys nice compliments, and it was a major struggle for her. Yeah, and for some people, if your love language is physical touch, it may be a tough one for you, because you're not getting that. Yes, it makes you independent and serious. Yes, because you have to pick up. You can't say this is the man's role, this is a woman's role, because you're by yourself, so you have to do everything. If you're a woman, you have to do everything, and if you're a guy, you have to do everything, because it's just you. So you have to put systems in place to help you. If you can afford it, outsource certain things and make your life easy. Long-term relationship, according to Mayowa, is mostly not easy on the wife because she is mostly the one who has an extra motive to be faithful because of societal outlooks. And sometimes, if I may add, the children, in a case where there are children, are often with the wife. But it depends. Conditions are different in different marriages. But it's just to know that it can work, but it will take a lot of work. So be ready to put in the work to make your relationship work. All right, so don't give up if you are in one, unless, of course, all the factors and all the conditions and all the pointers are saying it's time to give up. That is if you are not married. But if you're married, you should make the decision to fight for your marriage, unless it's just not working anymore for different reasons. And then you, of course, explore the right channels. Normally, so you could actually say, I'm not doing this anymore, and you walk away. And then later on, you ask yourself, did I act too soon? Was I too harsh in my decision, and so on? And that's why it's always good to talk to counselors. If you're married and you're thinking about, getting out of your marriage, really sit down and talk to counselors. Let them help you think through the different things that you're saying are the reasons that you want to leave for, and so on. Okay, so let's see. Do we have any more comments before we go? It's almost time. What's the comment, my darling?
My comment is, if you are single and you have not married yet, and long distance now happen, should you marry before the distance goes, or should you wait for the distance to happen before you not think of marrying?
We talked about this earlier, where somebody said, let's quickly do traditional, let's quickly do white, before we go. And that's in the hope that that will keep you. Okay, but saying I do is not necessarily strong enough to keep you faithful to each other, or to keep you true to your commitment to each other, if certain other things are not in place, and so on. So it's up to the couple to decide. They may decide to do that, and sometimes it may be necessary to do that so that you have the legal papers to maybe apply for the other person to join you, and so on. Really, you have to sit down and consider your conditions and decide what's best. Do we go? Do we stay? Do we tie the knots, and so on? Yes. So, okay. So here we are at the end of today's program, and I am so grateful to everybody who has joined us and everyone who has shared. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for tuning in again at 9, even though this was supposed to be at 8, but you came back at 9, and I am truly grateful. I really, seriously, extremely, intensely appreciate the fact that you came back at 9. So I wish you a beautiful week ahead, and remember, common sense is not so common. Bye.